Hello and welcome to Unlock UPSC. Today, we're diving into something that's absolutely critical for your GS Paper 2 prep. And honestly, for anyone interested in where the Indian judiciary is headed. We're going to unpack the vision of the new Chief Justice of India, Justice Surya Kant. Look, he's got a 15-month tenure, which is a pretty crucial window of time. So, based on a really insightful interview he just gave, we're going to decode his top priorities, how he plans to tackle some age-old problems, and what his leadership really means for justice in India. All right, so here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with Chief Justice Surya Kant's big-picture philosophy. Then, we'll get into the weeds of two massive challenges, that mountain of pending cases and the whole hot-button issue of judicial appointments. After that, we'll look at a real-world example, what's being called the Punjab model, to see his ideas in action. We'll also touch on his take on the judiciary in this crazy age of social media. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with the key points you need to remember for your mains answers. Sound good? Let's get started. Okay, let's jump right in. What's the core vision here? You know, a 15-month term for a Chief Justice, that's a pretty significant amount of time. It's long enough to actually get some meaningful reforms rolling, but it's also short enough that you've got to hit the ground running with a crystal clear focus. And from what we see in his interview, Justice Surya Kant isn't just talking about shuffling papers around, he's laying out a fundamental judicial philosophy that's going to be his North Star. And this quote right here, this is basically the mission statement. He says, "My focus on appointments is to place emphasis on merit, integrity, experience, temperament." Let's really chew on those four words because they're everything. Merit, that's about knowing the law inside and out. Integrity, well, that's the absolute non-negotiable, right? You have to be ethically rock solid. Experience isn't just about how long you've been a lawyer, but the quality of that experience. And then there's judicial temperament. This one's so important but often gets overlooked. It's about patience, being impartial, and having the humility to actually listen. By putting these four pillars front and center, the CJI is sending a clear message. The quality of our justice system starts and ends with the quality of our judges.
All right, on to the first massive challenge, and it's a big one. It's the issue that has been a thorn in the side of the Indian judicial system for decades, the pendency of cases. For Chief Justice Surya Kant, this isn't just a numbers game or a logistical headache. He sees it for what it is, a direct roadblock to justice for the common person.
So this really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we finally effectively tackle this backlog? We're talking millions of cases just sitting there, piling up. That old saying, justice delayed is justice denied, isn't just a saying, it's the lived reality for so many people. So what's the new CJI's plan? Well, he's not promising some magic wand. Instead, he's proposing a multi-layered strategy to attack the problem from all sides.
So here's his three-pronged attack. Let's look at each part, considering the good and the tricky. First up, streamlining our existing systems. The upside here is huge, right? Use technology, manage cases better, you can get some quick wins without tearing everything down. The challenge? Getting everyone on board and overcoming that "but we've always done it this way" mindset. Second, strengthening mediation. This is a fantastic idea. It can take a lot of pressure off the courts, especially for civil disputes. It's faster, less confrontational. The flip side? You can't mediate everything, like serious criminal cases, and it really requires a cultural shift in how we think about resolving conflicts. And third, the big one, ensuring every person has access to justice. This gets to the heart of the matter. The benefit? If everyone, especially the most vulnerable, has good legal help, you'll probably see fewer baseless cases and better outcomes for real ones. The challenge, of course, is the sheer scale of it. Making quality legal aid available to everyone is a massive undertaking. Okay, let's switch gears to our second major topic, judicial appointments. Now, this is always a hot-button issue, and it gets right to the heart of things like judicial independence and accountability. To really get where the CJI is coming from, we first need to understand the two main systems that are always being debated. And this chart lays it out pretty clearly. On one side, you have the collegium system. This is what we have right now. It was born out of a series of Supreme Court cases, and the whole idea behind it is to protect the judiciary's independence by letting judges appoint other judges, away from political pressure. On the other side, you have the National Judicial Appointments Commission, the NJAC. This was the government's attempt to shake things up, bring in the law minister and other outside experts to make the process more transparent. But, as you can see, the Supreme Court struck it down back in 2015, saying it interfered with the basic structure of judicial independence. So, the big question is, where does the new CJI stand on all this? He seems to be pushing for a reform-from-within strategy. Think about the pros and cons of the collegium. The biggest pro, its supporters say, is that it's a shield against political interference. The biggest con, and you hear this a lot, is that it can be a bit of a black box, leading to accusations of favoritism, the whole Uncle Judge problem. The CJI suggestions seem aimed squarely at fixing that con. He's saying, hey, the system is already becoming more open. By doing things like face-to-face interviews and actually giving reasons for why someone was picked or not, the collegium can become more transparent and build trust, all without giving up its independence.
And this quote really gets to the core of it. He says, it is crucial to strike a balance and also maintain the integrity of the system. That word balance is key. The CJI gets that people want more transparency, but he's also sounding a note of caution. If you make everything public, like sensitive intelligence reports on candidates, you might scare off the best legal minds from even applying. It's a tightrope walk. For your mains answers, this idea of balancing transparency with institutional integrity is a super important concept to explore.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about theory and philosophy, but what does this look like on the ground? To answer that, let's dive into a really powerful case study from Justice Kant's time at the Punjab and Haryana High Court. This example shows us how the judiciary can move beyond just institutional reform and tackle massive societal problems head-on. The issue at hand was the absolutely devastating drug crisis gripping Punjab. Justice Kant called it a true test of patience, and that phrase says it all. This wasn't a problem that could be fixed with one court order. What was needed, and what his bench delivered, was long-term, sustained judicial monitoring. This is a fascinating idea. It's like a form of proactive judicial governance, where the court becomes a central hub, guiding a multi-agency response over years.
And this is the brilliant, holistic strategy that came out of that long-term engagement. This four-prong model is pure gold for your exam answers. Just look at how complete it is. It starts with the punitive, going after the traffickers, law and order. But it doesn't end there. It moves to preventive, locking down the borders. Then, and this is so crucial, it has a rehabilitative arm, setting up de-addiction centers and helping families. And finally, it's educational, actually changing school curricula to prevent the next generation from falling into the same trap. This shows a judiciary that's not just a judge, but a catalyst for real systemic change.
All right, let's shift our focus to something incredibly modern and tricky, the judiciary in the digital age. We're in a world of live-streamed court hearings and viral clips. So how does an institution built on careful, quiet deliberation deal with the fast and furious, often context-free world of social media? This really is one of the defining questions for judicial independence today. On one hand, live streaming is great for transparency. That's a huge plus. But on the other hand, you get these 30-second clips taken out of context that go viral, leading to a huge public backlash against judges who are just trying to do their jobs. CJI Kant's take on this is really thoughtful and balanced.
And this quote is so powerful. We could potentially reach a point where liberty feels like it exists more in principle than in practice. Wow, he's making a profound defense of free speech, our fundamental right under Article 19. He's basically warning us. When faced with online trolls, the temptation is to say, let's control it. But he argues that if you go too far down that road, you create a chilling effect, where people are afraid to speak. Liberty becomes just a word in a book, not something we actually live. For him, the risk of being misunderstood online is a price we have to pay to protect that greater freedom.
So, to sum up his stance, first, he completely rejects the idea of controlling social media. He understands you can't and you shouldn't. Second, he gets the medium. He knows those viral snippets don't tell the whole story. Third, his take on trolling is really interesting. He calls it a product of niceness, basically ignorance, and says the best response is to just ignore it. And finally, and this is the most important part for the judiciary itself, he tells judges to stay focused on their duty. Don't get distracted by the noise. Letting Twitter trends influence court decisions would be a disaster for the rule of law.
Okay, for everyone gearing up for your mains exams, whether it's UPSC, BPSC, or any other civil service, let's pull all of this together. We're going to crystallize the key takeaways that you can directly use to build stronger, more analytical answers. So let's do a quick revision of how you can use these points in your answers. First, if a question comes up on judicial reforms, you can kick off your answer by listing the CJI's main priorities: tackling pendency, ensuring access to justice, and focusing on merit in appointments. Second, when you're discussing the collegium system, remember that killer phrase, striking a balance between transparency and institutional integrity. Third, that Punjab model, it's your perfect case study for questions on the judiciary's role in social justice. Fourth, remember to define judicial independence broadly. It's not just freedom from the government, but from all kinds of pressure, including from the media. And finally, on questions about free speech in the digital age, you can use the CJI's perspective to argue for protecting liberty, even when it's messy. All right, time to put your thinking caps on. Here's a practice question for you to chew on. Judicial independence is not only freedom from the executive but also from other pressures. Discuss this statement in the context of challenges faced by the Indian judiciary today. Now, when you tackle this, think about starting by defining that expanded idea of judicial independence. Then, break down the different pressures. You've got the executive, which we talked about with the NJAC, and then these other pressures like social media. Use all the examples and ideas we've discussed today to build a really solid, nuanced argument. Give it a try. See you again tomorrow with an important editorial. For this, subscribe to the YouTube channel Unlock UPSC. Thank you.